Well, hello there. You're watching The Pulse. It's the start of a brand new week. And coming up in this edition, Auditor General is this afternoon convinced that public funds allocated for the provision of hot meals at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic may have been paid to persons who have not provided any service at all. Well, this afternoon, we'll audit government's COVID-19 expenditure as we interact with former Auditor General Daniel Domelovo. As we delve into the matters, we're equally looking at that deadline, the deadline for the debt exchange program. Individual bondholders have a limited time to act fast as the deadline from government is fast approaching. We'll explore the options available to them as we await government's final decision after engaging stakeholders on this matter. It's also coming up right here on The Pulse. And don't forget that it's exactly 40 years since Ghana last suffered a severe hunger and famine. We're going back to tell you that story about individuals who experienced the hardship up to the close of that very tragic time in our history. I'm blessed, Sogah. There's more coming your way here on The Pulse. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu that's Safe Sanitation. Don't forget that we're on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144, and we have the details coming your way right after this. Please stay. Well, we're starting on the note of talking about anti-corruption. The Auditor General is this afternoon convinced that public funds allocated for the provision of meals, hot meals for that matter, at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, may have been paid to persons who have not provided any service at all. The latest infraction is contained in the comprehensive report on the audit of the government of Ghana COVID-19 expenditure for the period of March 2020 to the period of June 2022. In April 2020, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection engaged caterers for the supply of hot meals and spot payments in the Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi areas as part of the COVID-19 emergency food payments program. But of course, looking at what's coming out from the latest audit from the Auditor General, there are some red flags about that hot meal that was provided. Let's get to the details for you by bringing you a breakdown of what we found out. It indicates that in the heat of the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Health, entered into an agreement with the United Nations Children Fund, that is UNICEF, for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines and related supplies based on second additional credit financing of some $200,000 by the World Bank. Now, the Auditor General is stating here that, quote, "We noted that the Ministry of Health, on behalf of the government of Ghana, paid an amount of 120,000 that's $120 million, $192,379 on that UNICEF VAT for the supply of 16,000 doses of vaccine." So these are some of the findings on the health front. Then it continues to indicate that when it comes to the payment, some $38,322,000 were supplied to the National Cold Room, resulting in an outstanding amount of some $81,870,379.80 which is now the outstanding amount with UNICEF AVT. Now, the Auditor General is pointing out that this could result in an outstanding amount under the contract. But when it comes to other issues here being pointed out on the Ministry of Health, the Chief Director of the Ministry of Health explained that the amount was paid in anticipation of receiving all vaccines within the short space of time for vaccination in the country. However, unexpected vaccine donations into the country, coupled with limited vaccine storage capacity and the slow uptake by Ghanaians to be vaccinated, it made it impossible for the full deliveries to be made. And so the Auditor General is recommending that a Chief Director makes every effort to renegotiate to recover the outstanding amount. Let's take you to the Ministry of Gender's findings and what it is that the Auditor General is saying about the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection when it comes to the hot meal that was provided, because that's where a lot of issues are coming up. So this is the various amounts that were paid in tranches, 4 tranches in all, to the Gender Social Protection Ministry. On the 7th of April 2020, the first tranche of 1,200,000 Ghana cedis was paid to the Gender Ministry. On the 9th of April 2020, the second tranche of 3.6 million cedis was released, and the subsequent tranches involved the one that was paid on the 17th of April 2020 with some 4.2 million Ghana cedis released as of that time. By the end of April, specifically the 24th of April 2020, some 3 million cedis was released to the Gender Social Protection Ministry, amounting to 12 million Ghana cedis in all. But how did the Gender Ministry go about the expenditure? We'll find out shortly. The Auditor General notes that from the records of the ministry, an amount of 7.9 million cedis and also 3.9 million Ghana cedis were expended in Greater Accra and Greater Kumasi, respectively, for COVID-19 emergency food payment for the delivery of hot meals to poor and vulnerable people. The ministry engaged caterers, some of whom were from the school feeding program and Jofel catering services, amongst others, for the supply of hot meals and spot payments ranging between 5,000 Ghana cedis and 48,000 Ghana cedis, which were made to the service providers. Now, the Auditor General continues to point out that there are some findings on the Ministry of Information as well, because it talks about the fact that the President on update number 5 pointed out some measures on the spread of coronavirus, which happened on the 5th of April 2020. The President stated clearly that some insurance packages were going to be given to frontline staff, amounting to the tune of some 350,000 Ghana cedis for each health personnel. But the President also indicated that all health workers will not pay taxes on their payments, on their salaries for the next 3 months. That was for that period, April, May, June as well. And he further stated that all frontline health workers will receive additional allowances of 50% of their base pay per month. But in the case of the Ministry of Information, during the review of the Auditor General, they noted that senior management staff and other supporting staff of the Ministry of Information paid themselves a total amount of 151,500 Ghana cedis as COVID-19 risk allowance for coming to work during the lockdown period, contrary to the above presidential directive and without approval from the Office of the Chief of Staff. And so the recommendation is being made that an amount of 150,500 Ghana cedis should be recovered from the beneficiary staff and paid to the Auditor General's recoveries account. Based on these findings, a lot has been happening this week as well. The Public Accounts Committee has also been sitting. So it's a good time to hear from Daniel Domelovo, former Auditor General, who's joining us in a conversation here on The Pulse. Happy New Year, sir, and welcome to The Pulse.
Thank you very much. Many happy returns to you.
Well, I'm sure that you've seen some of the findings. At the time you left office, you expressed interest in at least commissioning some sort of an audit into the COVID-19 expenses. Looking at some of these latest findings and what we are learning of, are you satisfied or you feel there's more that we should be doing to probe these matters?
Thank you very much. Yes, as you said, I was going to actually audit the COVID expenditure in 2020 before leaving office. This is because the novel coronavirus and COVID-19 Act, which is Act 1013, requires the Auditor General to audit the financial statements relating to their revenue and expenditure and report on it within 6 months after the end of the financial year. So we're preparing to do that before I left And I must say that I commend the Auditor General and his team for the work done, but it is sad that we are seeing this level of wastage at a time where there are no fiscal space, as a result of which even people who lent money to government cannot be paid. However, people are wasting government money this way. It is sad to say the least.
Do you feel we should be doing more? And I guess that's a more precise one there.
Exactly, we should be doing more in different fronts. One, there should be consequences for these infractions. If we do 1,000 audits and there are no consequences, people are going to continue with this impunity. So I think and I recommend that there must be consequences, or people must be held accountable so that we can avoid the recurrence of this. I also expect that in line with the provisions of the Act 2013 that are referred to, there is the need to have an annual audit on this COVID trust fund. And so we are waiting for that report also. Looking at the report that was issued by the Auditor General, a very good report with good findings, and I commend him and his team for it. But I'm confused. I don't know whether this report was in satisfaction of the requirement of that act, or it is in satisfaction of Section 16, or in satisfaction of Article 187 of the Constitution. Because when I read the report, I get a bit confused about it. If you read the second page of the report, it says it's coming under Section 16 of the Audit Service Act, which is a special audit. But the transmitter letter, which went to the Speaker of Parliament, says he is using his mandate under Article 187, and also based upon a request from the Speaker. So I was like, oh, okay. The Speaker asked the Auditor General to do this audit. Then I go to the beginning of the audit report, the summary, and it says it is based upon the Article 187 and a request from Minister of Finance, not the Speaker. So I was like, there's a lack of consistency here, which I think if he corrects it, it will help all of us to know exactly where is the request coming from and what mandate he's using.
Right.
As I'm saying this because if he is depending upon the Article 187, as stated in the transmitter letter and the letter to the Speaker, then I don't think lumping several financial years together is in order, because Article 187 Clause 5 requires the Auditor General to produce at the end of each financial year the report and submit it to Parliament within 6 months. So if it is that provision, those provisions that it is dependent upon, then I think the report itself has a problem. But if he's going under Section 16 of the Audit Service Act, then that one is okay, except that the reporting of this in his report is not consistent. But that is just the form. The substantive issue is that there are serious infractions. In fact, you just mentioned a lot of them. One of them which intrigued me was the situation where Ministry of Health have contracted a finance lease agreement for 15 million and over, which is covering 25 good years. My goodness, why would you do that? And even here is the case, there was no feasibility studies, or nobody went to check whether the facility was fit for purpose. And after this agreement, we are told 20-point-something million is going to be used in reformatting or reshaping the place. And I'm like, who in his normal sense will do this? If not because people are getting away with infractions. So I think we can do more from both the audit side and also enforcing the findings of the audit.
I'll tell you what I also feel about what's happening to this document. And one has got to do with your track record on surcharge. I need to bring that up because I recall as many as 112 surcharges, raking in over 67 million cedis to government chest. It was the reason for which you were adjudged the Integrity Personality of the Year 2019 by the Ghana Integrity Initiative. What do you feel is accounting for this inability of the audit service now to go ahead and exercise that constitutional mandate?
First and foremost, let me say that whenever this disallowance and surcharge is mentioned, the 112 or whatever certificates come to the fore. But I think the most significant thing which happened was the disallowance of 5.4 billion, which is money that government should have paid. And we disallowed that. I thought that should be remembered always. There's a whole report on that. As to why there is no disallowance or surcharges recently, I think the best person to answer that should be the Auditor General. Remember, the Constitution under Article 1A7 Clause 7B provides that the Auditor General, in the performance of his function, can disallow any item, in fact, he used the word may, disallow any item of expenditure which is contrary to law and surcharge the people responsible. And that is what I sought to do, because I thought if there are no consequences for the infractions, the culture of impunity will continue. So that is what I sought to do. And I know for sure that the current Auditor General, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Ekuamwa, is more than capable of doing the same. Maybe he may have some challenges which I am not aware of, but I think that by the time I left office, the mechanisms and the institutional arrangements were in place, which he can use to do same.
Yeah, but you want him to go ahead and surcharge, do you?
Of course, yes. In fact, I was waiting to hear that following this report, these people who are misusing money have been surcharged. Because if we don't do that, we can continuously audit. He can send his people 1,001 times on the field, but we will continue getting these infractions. And even people get emboldened because they think that nothing is going to happen as a result of this audit. So it is my wish and my expectation that those that is saying refund should go ahead, serve them with notice of intention to disallow and surcharge them. If they are not happy, they should go to court. It doesn't matter whether they go to court or they don't go to court. It is quite deterrent. And if they go to court, well, they may win, they may not win. The Auditor General may lose some of the cases, may win some of the cases, but that is the name of the game.
But some say you paid the price for it, and you vividly recall the Kroll and Associates case, for instance. It was part of the reasons that CSOs, in a collective statement issued, were of the opinion that you were forced out of office. So if you're asking your successors, those succeeding you, to take up your cause, they may suffer the same fate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very interesting development, because it's not every public servant or every Auditor General would like to face the consequences of doing his work as it is supposed to be. You talked about CSOs issuing a statement. You've forgotten they even filed a suit at the Supreme Court. And the Apex Court of Ghana, up to today, has not even decided that case. It's of no importance to the Supreme Court that these type of things can happen. However, it is the same Supreme Court in Occupy Ghana versus Attorney General that directed that the Auditor General must discharge these duties and responsibilities. So if that has happened and there's a problem, I thought the first thing the Supreme Court should do is to expedite action and bring it to a closure for us to know where the Auditor General should go and where he should not go, so that can guide my successors. But that is also in a limbo. And for that matter, I think that can contribute, or maybe one of the reasons why he's exercising precaution, because the accounts have it that the tree that Anansi dies under, in Tikuma the sun does not go and sleep under it. So maybe that is why.
And there was just this thing about your personality. Some say, well, stubborn academy, if I could use that word. But it was much more of courage, saying truth to power as it is. For those who work in, institutions, state institutions that have to exercise supervisory roles over public expenditure, where should they be drawing their inspiration from? And I'm just wondering where you drew yours from at the time.
Well, you know, we all have different approaches or values when it comes to some of these things. I believe that I better do what I think is right, damn the consequences. And I don't really bother myself to think about what may happen to me. Because I have a notion that the work in the public service, when it comes to an end, my life has not come to an end. I think there is life beyond the public service. So you only have to move on. And all these office holders, especially the Auditor General, he took an oath of office, and read what the oath of office says. It binds him to do what the laws requires, without fear or favor, without affection or ill will. So that is what I thought not only him, but all similar office holders should do. But well, it's very difficult to talk for someone. So please, you may be kind enough to ask him what are the challenges he's facing. Maybe I'm oblivious of those challenges so that we all know. I remember I was outside the country, but I saw some demonstrations last year to his office asking him to disallow and set charge. I saw people who I know very well, prominent people, but it has still not, maybe it has happened and I don't know. If it has not happened, then I think it is something disturbing or keeping him from it. It is good you reach out to him and find out that.
Yeah, but I'm asking that question because of the succeeding generations of persons who look up to you. I recall you indicating that when you fight corruption, corruption will fight back. But I'm just wondering where you are still keeping and taking that inspiration from that should guide others.
Yes, it's like I knew the consequences of doing the right thing. Because the norm in the public service or in Ghana is that everybody is bending the rules. So they expect the Auditor General to also bend the rules. And corruption in particular, wherever you fight it, it will also fight you. It's not limited to Ghana. It has fought several people around the globe. I knew this very well because I've been in public financial management for several years, and I knew that it was going to fight me. So it did not come to me as a surprise. But my encouragement to people who come after me is that that is not the end of the road. It is never the end of the road. As you are being maybe subjected to all sorts of unfair treatments, allegations, manipulations from the highest office that you can think of, they are rather marketing you. So others may be looking or hearing your story and may be ready to accept you to continue working with them, or life, the life of a professional goes beyond serving in the public service. So my encouragement to everyone is just do your work, do it well. Don't be too much afraid of the consequences. The worst that may happen is that you are removed from office. Some say, what about if they kill you? I say, well, even death, we are all going to die one day. So when I was in office, I even said it, that I didn't care if I may have to lose my life for doing my work. And so we may have to sacrifice for Mother Ghana. If everybody says, let me just protect myself, insulate myself from attacks and whatnot from the corrupt group or the powers that be, then Ghana is not going to go anywhere. Look at where we are as at now. Our fiscals are very terrible. We don't have any fiscal space. And yet the rot is going on. And you will expect that the government will be at the forefront to say, whoever spent a cedi unlawfully should return it, even before the Auditor General comes in. Because there is an institution which we call internal audit. I am very sure that many of these findings have been unearthed by the internal audit before the external auditors came. If they couldn't unearth it, then it means the internal audit is weak. Weak not because the people are not professional, weak because their independence is impaired, weak because they are not well financed, they are not resourced, and they are under the very people they are checking. So the institutional arrangement for internal audit to function well has not been done. And I'm aware there is a draft law which I've read and I was very happy with, but Where is that law now? It has not, I don't know whether it has even reached Parliament before it will be passed into law. So my encouragement to public servants who are doing their work well is that don't think that the end of your service is the end of your life. There is life beyond public service. Thank you.
Coincidentally, the Public Accounts Committee sittings are equally underway, and some of those documents, I'm sure you supervised them as well. But it's the same old case of corruption, of misapplication of funds, and I'm just wondering if this could ever end. Where do we start off from?
From my point of view, I've made it clear that if there are no consequences for misbehavior, misbehavior will continue. We can have all those layers, having the internal audit, external auditors, public accounts committee, bring in the special prosecutor, bring in the attorney general, bring in Yoko, whatever. If all of this will just be dancing around and nothing substantive happens, then people get emboldened, and for that matter, they will continue with it. With the Public Accounts Committee, let me say that I admire the work that they are doing. I had the opportunity to listen to one of their sittings. I think the IGP and etc. were at that sitting. And I was like, this is great, because if you were a stranger and you came into that meeting or tune in, it was going to be difficult to determine which member is in opposition and which one is in government, because they were all taking their work seriously, and I think I must pat them on the back. However, two things. One, the time it takes before the Public Accounts Committee sit on the audit report is too long, because findings may take a year, 2 years or more before they do it. I'm aware that they were putting in measures to catch up, but they've not caught up. Why? Because of the second reason. They don't have funding. Most of their sittings are funded by donors. I don't know whether it is still the case. When I was in office, most of the times they have to get a financier, somebody to fund their sitting. This is a core mandate or core activity of public financial management, and there must be a budget for it so that they can do their work and do it well. And beyond that, they must be able to call into question even the Minister of Finance, because the PFM Act requires that there must be a status update from the Minister of Finance on how the recommendations or the audit finding recommendations supplied by or decided on by the Public Accounts Committee have been addressed. There must be an update or a report. And also there is a provision also on Attorney General, who is also supposed to give the same type of update and give a copy to the Auditor General and copy to and write to the Parliament. These are all not forthcoming because they don't have the resources, they don't have the time, and their time are also limited. They have other schedules and activities to do. I'm full of commendation for them, but I wish they could speed up the process and make it a bit more timely, so that we don't in 2023 be talking about what happened in 2020 or 2019. Thank you.
Let's look at the solutions then. Where do we start off from in terms of the approach? Very often the focus is on the political class, and yet some are on the other side, the other divide, with the opinion that we have a group of corrupt civil servants who are always tagging the political class, a reason for which we are not able to fight graft. What's your target?
My target is the political class more than the public servants, because I know I've been, and mind you, before becoming Auditor General, I've been a public servant for 18 years. I've worked in Accountant General's Department for 18 years. So I know that most of the things done by the public servants are done under the supervision or coercion of the political leaders. But some of them, they do it themselves. It has nothing to do with the political leaders. However, if we are holding the account holder, that is the minister responsible, I'm sure the minister will ensure that everything down there is clean. Assuming that the audit report came up. I saw something issued on behalf of the president or by the president, and the president gave directives and said, look, if you want to remain in my cabinet, then you have 3 weeks to clear all the issues raised in the audit report for your ministry. And if you are not able to do that within 3 weeks and recover monies which must be recovered, etc., you are no more part of my government. I am sure that the minister will go call his chief director and give him or her the marching orders, and it will bring sanity to the system. So the buck stops on the table of the political leaders. If they show tolerance for abuse and misuse of public funds, of course, when they are stealing, the public servants are aware. Don't doubt the intelligence of public servants. They are aware of what their seniors do. But even if the seniors don't do it, and they look away and make sure that the rot continues, then we may have to blame them as well. So I think that we may have to ensure that, in fact, if you want to fight corruption, you can't fight corruption by looking at those down there. You must hit the top man, because one of the key things in fighting corruption is to bring deterrence into the system. If they look at it and say that even the chief executive has not been spared, then how will we spare you, the storekeeper? So the storekeeper will be careful. Even if he has not yet stolen, if he had planned to steal, he may stop the stealing. So I think we must look at both, but emphasis must be at the top. Because in public financial management, I argue and maintain that it storms at the top and drizzles at the bottom. So you want to pay attention to where it is storming. It is at the top. If you look at the expenditure at the top, it can cover several small expenditures which we go after, which at times does not even produce value for money.
Daniel Domelovo, what is it about COVID-19 that has provided that breeding ground for corruption to fester?
It is not about COVID-19 per se. It is about the pandemic. In any situation where there is an emergency, public servants who are already hungry and ready to abuse public funds take advantage of that. And the rules are relaxed. I hope you notice that if you saw the audit report, you saw several expenditures that were acquitted only by, certificate of honor. I used to call it certificate of dishonor. They still call it honor. I think it's a very dishonest certificate. People steal money, collect the money, put in their pocket, and issue certificate for you and say, this is a certificate of honor. So in such situations, in fact, to be honest with you, under such emergencies, the accountability mechanism should have also changed. It should not be business as usual. The audit should have happened several years ago. At the end of 2020, we should have had an audit report. 2021, we should have another report, so that the frequency and, again, the sanctions that go with it would deter people from the abuses. If you look at, I think the money paid in Sogah, in Adaklu, or something of that nature, I think it happened as far back as April 2020. And if there were to be an audit report at the end of 2020, and this was discovered, maybe it will have been corrected long ago than doing that in 2023.
Yeah, but it was also the case even when it came to the distribution of free food. Do you feel that should, I mean, it's time we do away with certificates of honor? Because in the case of the free food, the fear of the Auditor General is people may not have provided services, and yet because they issued that certificate, you are not able to hold them to account then.
Yes, the manner and the modus operandi of sharing those food by itself was a problem. It was problematic. Admittedly, we have never gone through that before. So I think maybe it is a learning curve for us, or a learning event for us all. But there may be, God forbid, another pandemic in years to come. So this is time that we must sit down and look at what should be the procurement processes or procedures, what should be the financial management arrangements, what should be the distribution, what should be the accountability mechanisms, so to ensure that we save lives, but at the same time also mitigate against abuses of public funds. So it is incumbent on the Auditor General, the Accountant General, Ministry of Finance, and the key stakeholders to come together and say, look, what are the lessons learned from COVID-19? And God forbid, in case something of that nature or magnitude is going to happen again, what accountability mechanisms should we put in place so that people don't take advantage of that and abuse or misuse public funds?
Right. I just want to pick up on two issues before we wrap up. The first one, starting off on one of the statements made by the special prosecutor recently. You are passionate about corruption, so I'll ask you about it. He says, as a nation, we're not serious about fighting corruption. You agree?
I don't understand that statement. What does it mean? That we have put the mechanisms in place, but we are not serious about it? His office was established, but we are not serious about it? I don't really understand what that means. Maybe some individuals are not interested in fighting the corruption. But if the nation as a whole does not want to fight corruption, we will not enact such laws, such as the one which mandates Auditor General to search out. We will not have come out with a law which mandates his office to perform and etc. So maybe, I didn't hear what he said, but maybe he's being quoted out of context. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's some frustration on his way. He expected some support, which he is not receiving. But then I think no normal human being would like corruption, because corruption is one disease which is eating all of us more than any other disease. The number of people dying in our hospitals because of corruption are uncountable. The number of people who get accidents on our roads and die because of corruption are uncountable. The number of students or children whose future is lost because of corruption, they can't get good education, etc., are plenty. Corruption is a disaster. And for that matter, for a country or a group of people or a nation to say we are not ready to fight it means we are calling for our doom.
And very finally, you may no longer be the Auditor General, but your opinion matters. There is, of course, the concern that we look into public funds being allocated to government's flagship National Cathedral project. Just as the COVID, many believe that that project is shrouded in a lot of secrecy. What's your take on the need for us to have state institutions or even your successor at the Auditor General's Department take up that matter and probe how public funds are being expended on that project?
Let me say first and foremost that this is my opinion, and it is not an audit opinion. I have not gone into every detail of that case, but I find that expenditure or that transaction very, very unfortunate. At no point in time should we be using public funds to fund individual people's wish or desire. So if the president has a desire to put up a cathedral for God, he should go ahead and look for his money, but not to use public funds. But even if he has to use public funds, the Constitution has laid down procedure of using public funds, especially money from the Consolidated Fund. Article 178 provides that it must be in the budget or in a supplementary budget approved by Parliament, except if it is a charge on the appropriation by a law, that is the Constitution, or an act of Parliament. This was not done. Again, we were told that it was an emergency, as a result of which the Minister of Finance used the emergency, emergency vote in making that payment. At the same time, the same Minister of Finance requested that there should be money paid into the contingency fund. Read the Auditor General's report, it's there, that 1.2 million was paid into contingency fund, not the vote, and used for COVID, which is clearly an emergency, an unforeseeable expenditure. So if the cathedral was actually an unforeseeable expenditure which occurred, it should have been coming out of the contingency fund, not the vote. Why didn't it come from there? Because the contingency fund is under the supervision of the Finance Committee of Parliament. So there will be transparency and accountability there. So they went in for this black box called contingency vote and used that instead. Again, the Constitution provides that the minister, if he will not even use contingency fund, he must submit a supplementary budget to Parliament. There again, there will be accountability and transparency. To avoid this, the government decided to use contingency vote, which I must admittedly say has been in the books for several years. And it gives the ministers, the various ministers of finance, a leeway of putting money there and can use it anyhow. And I call on Parliament to disallow that expenditure line. They should cancel it. It is unlawful. The Constitution has provided medium for which the government should address contingencies or unexpected expenditures. There are two. One of them, utilizing the vote under the contingency fund, which must be replenished. Secondly, the minister can go to Parliament with supplementary budget. If they will not do this, then they should not allow them. If you look at the budget for 2023, you see that the amount is colossal. I didn't know you were going to ask me a question on it. I will have quoted it for you. But look at the projection for 2024 going. It's going to the tune, I think by 2026, it will be about 14 billion. And why do we have to create such a contingency where there is no transparency on it, there's no accountability for it, you only spend money? One day you hear that Daniel Domelovo has been built a house, and you ask, Minister, where did you get the approval from? He said he took it from contingency vote. It is a window for stealing, it is a window for wastage, and must be stopped. Thank you very much.
Well, we're wrapping up. Any message for those in authority in terms of dealing with corruption?
Yes, I would like to plead with them that we cannot do otherwise. We know corruption is endemic in the system, but then we cannot develop without keeping an eye on corruption. So they should do whatever is possible to arm or resource the Office of the Auditor General, the Special Prosecutor, the YOCO, all the anti-corruption fighting institutions, so that we can sustain the fight. And also they should help them with the justice implementation system, so that if you go to, the case go to court, it must be heard. We have some cases on corruption, they just go and sit in the court and nothing happens.
I see that you want the Chief Justice to act fast on that case.
Yes, he's one of the people who I think, if you hear me, we should try and prioritize corruption issues, because corruption issues are national issues. It doesn't affect one person. It's not an individual issue. It is affecting the country at times at large. So we should prioritize issues pertaining or relating to corruption, so that we have value for our money.
I'm grateful. Daniel Domelovo, thank you for spending time with us here on The Pulse. And don't forget that the deadline for individual bondholders to sign on to the debt exchange program is fast approaching and is set to expire in just a week's time. According to reports, government has reached a deal with banks and insurance institutions under the program. An official statement on the details of that agreement is expected to be released later today. But here's what we know so far. So you see that on the screens, indicating that government is proposing a coupon payment of some 5% for 2023 as part of the revision exercise, as well as providing relief for pensioners and individual bondholders above 60%, 68 years of age, I should say. And now this is a change from the earlier plan, which had a 0% payment for coupons in 2023. Additionally, government is also considering exempting pensioners from the program altogether on that plan. So based on this, I want to bring in economist and research lead at GCB Capital, Courage Buti, who's joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for your time here on The Pulse. You play so much in the industry, so it's fair to, first of all, confirm from you if indeed what we're hearing from the birds is true, that indeed you are inching closer, I mean, by extension, the industry, towards securing that agreement with government.
Well, very good afternoon to your listeners. I'm aware negotiations are ongoing and they are happening very frequently. But as to the fine details, we wait for official communication from the ministry in that regard.
Let's look at the implications then. of course, what government is seeking to do, especially with the 2023 coupons. Initially, the plan was to have zero-rated coupons in 2023. Government is revising that to somewhere 5%, and some exemptions for those above 60 years of age. What's likely to be the impact, looking at the target government has in reducing public debt?
Well, it was clear from the word go that investors were not having a zero coupon for 2023, and rightly so, because people would have planned their expenditures and their livelihoods on some of these investments, really. And so that will be too much of a shock to bear. Remember, the IMF never really told us to do domestic debt restructuring. They wanted to restore debt sustainability, and they gave you the targets. 55% of GDP by 2028. The approach is your choice, and the magnitude of savings you want to do on the local market versus the external market are all your choice. And so to the extent that individuals' livelihoods are threatened by some of these very not too friendly conditions or terms of the bond, it is just natural that people resist it, and then it's threatening now the success of the program in general. And that is why I think that it's actually a good step in the right direction if the figures you are putting around are eventually confirmed. It would have addressed the concerns of the market. Yes, it will lead to some shortfall in terms of what they target to achieve by the end of the program locally, but then it would have been good progress and laid the grounds for the engagement with external creditors, which might yield or potentially yield more savings in that regard, especially when the portfolios of those foreign investors exposed to Ghana are just but a fraction of their total holdings, really. I think it will set the pace for you. And especially the IMF says they are looking for significant progress on the domestic market, debt restructuring to be able to kick in or approve the program in general. If we make progress in this way where we could exempt some pensions and the sectors agitating, and at least revise the terms a bit to get acceptable participation at this initial stage, we could get a program started and then we'll start working on the rest so that we can achieve the ultimate targets by the timeline set. So I think it would have been a good progress, or it would be a good progress if these figures are confirmed.
Plus and minuses on the individual debt individual bondholders, I should say. Without that, what will be the implication? And with that, what scenario are we building up?
Well, nothing is given at this point, right? And even if individuals are not exempted, there is no if you like surety that everybody will participate in this program. It's still going to be individual choices. And of course, if I do not tender my bond because it's voluntary, I shouldn't suffer any consequences ordinarily. And so for me, I think success rate, how many percentage will participate or not at this point, may not be too relevant. And even the exemption of the individuals, if they so do, yes, it would have been a shock, but I think we are better off getting 70, 60% success with revised terms rather than pushing to include individuals and get 0% success or under 50% success, really. My point is, let's push for what we can get on the local market, be it 70%, 60%, or even 50%. Once we make that progress, we could find a basis to engage the external creditors for probably more deeper cuts or deeper haircuts in that regard, so that ultimately we can get the program succeeding. Otherwise, if government stick to their stance, investors stick to their stance, there will be a stalemate, no progress will be made.
Yeah, but I guess you can understand the position of government at this time, the need for fiscal space as well. Just beyond seeking or getting an IMF deal, government wants to spend more.
Which is unfortunate, right? And I was a bit taken aback when I heard last week that we are thinking of supplying laptops for every secondary school student. I mean, in this time, I think government's fair share of the burden would have been to cut back on expenditure, and quite drastically. I don't understand, for instance, why we are looking at capital expenditure of 25 billion in 2023, when the records show in years past we've done around 7 billion, 8 billion, and most recently, I think about 15 billion. in a period where you are constrained, you need space in your budget to deal with critical expenditure and essential expenditure, you want to cut back on some of the excesses. Till now, having seen that tilt or that effort on the side of government to want to control expenditure drastically to match the reality of the time, really. And that is where I feel they need to do more. They need to show the lead. They need to show the way that they are serious about this. And then those of us individuals who are being burdened with this, the debt exchange, can also sympathize and want to maybe support the agenda in the interest of patriotism. But then if government will want to go as usual and you want individuals to cut so that you can go on that expenditure spree, then eventually what you are doing is that you are undermining the success of the program that you are trying to put in place. And so I think there has to be some measured approach to it, even from the side of government. Yes, we need to create fiscal space, but that should come from both expenditure controls and savings from this debt exchange, rather than hoping for much significant saving on this program so that we can channel that into other expenditures.
Well, Courage, but this is the point. Let's focus on the individual now and the options available. You are in the capital market, so you may be of help. What would you say to someone who says, well, I'm out of options now as to where exactly to put my money? There are lots of people out there very uncertain about the return on investment. What's the best possible solution?
Yes, I mean, I agree it's uncertain times, uncharted territory for most fund managers locally, because what we have done all this while has been, for most people, as to do with the government organs and some quality corporates here and there, some fixed deposits. That has been the asset mix, really. In this time, everybody is challenged and we are all looking for solutions. But I think based on your specific needs, what you are planning your finances for, what time duration you have, and what risk you are able to tolerate, my best advice would be that talk to your investment advisor, talk to GCB Capital, talk to any other investment advisor of your choice. Let us understand your needs. There are options, including even investing outside Ghana, and those are options we are exploring, we have on the table. And then we can look at your specific needs, your liquidity needs, and your risk tolerance, and we might be able to recommend something for you that works. Do not take that decision all by yourself without the full fact, because you are escaping from, say, government or Ghana, but you might run into something that is even more unbearable. And so take it in a considerate way. Take it with the best and full information. And that is why it's appropriate that you talk to investment advisors like ourselves or any other person you're comfortable with.
Courage Buti, Research Lead, GCB Capital. Thank you for joining us here on The Pulse. Nearly 60 students of the WA Senior High Technical School are without accommodation this afternoon after a fire outbreak in their dormitory last night. The 58 displaced students have had all of their personal belongings and valuables destroyed. Although there were thankfully no casualties, many of the students have been left traumatized by the incident. Our Upper West regional correspondent Rafiq Salam brings us the latest update on that story from WA.
Pandemonium at WA Senior High Technical School was hectic and students ran for their lives. The scene, after captured by this viral amateur video, had the affected girls running helter-skelter, crying and shouting for help. They became helpless at a point and looked on in pain while their valuables, comprising of reading materials, uniforms, mattresses, bags, food and non-food items, were consumed by the inferno and within minutes turned into ashes. The fire, we are told, started after 8 p.m. when the girls were at night preps. Personnel of the Ghana National Fire Service were called to the scene to help those of the fire. It took them about an hour before the fire was brought under control. The fire affected 5 rooms in the top floor of the 2-story dormitory. The cause of the fire for now is not known. It's been speculated, however, that one of the girls saw the fire upon her return to the dormitory after brownout at their classroom. There were no casualties. 8 students, however, were rushed to the WA Municipal Hospital for treatment. About 200 girls have been displaced as a result of the fire. This is the fourth time in 2 years that the girls' dormitory in the Upper West region has been burnt into ashes. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam.
Very sad event there. I want to bring in assistant headmistress of WA Senior High Technical School, Sahada Dodu, joining us live now via Zoom. Thank you, madam, for your time. So what's the latest now in terms of the safety of your students?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak on the matter. Currently, our students have gone through a series of counseling to try to calm the situation. We have tried to also contact their parents to give them the assurance that these children are safe. And we are also trying to look at those who are very much affected, those who had their property destroyed, to see if they will wish to go home for some few days to join their parents, just to release the tension and return to school. We will also do that for them. So currently, these are some of the measures, and we have also evacuated the students from this scene to a different block so that they can remain calm for now.
Well, I'm sure that you're leaving.
Everything is calm.
Right. Everything is calm as you're indicating. But I'm sure that you're leaving the investigations to the fire service and other security agencies. But what are your initial findings telling you about what may have led to this inferno?
For now, we can't really point to exactly what the cause of the fire may be. The regional fire team and the municipal, they were there and they have conducted their investigations. They said they will submit a report to RAT as to the exact cause of the fire. So for now, we have not been able to establish exactly what the cause of the fire is.
Okay, and about parents as well, how are you dealing with them? Have you informed all parents? But do you have some trooping on campus trying to find out if indeed their wards are safe? How are you dealing with that?
Yes, officially, we have been able to reach out to the parents of all the affected students. We call them on phone one-on-one to inform them of the situation and to assure them that their wards are safe. However, we have given room in case they may wish to take their children home at least for a few days for them to be able to come back, to organize them so that they can return to campus to continue with academic work.
So if we have to be clear on that, you're halting academic activities for a number of days. For how long?
No, we are not halting academic activities entirely. It is just the affected students, the 58 affected students that we are trying to let them normalize and then come back to school. And so because of that, we are actually not compelling students to leave. All other students who were not affected are on campus. They are having their normal activities.
Yeah, but for those, but I'm asking for those who have been affected, how will they make up for the contact hours that they have lost?
For those who are affected, because we have the list of the students, we have given them at least up to a week for them to prepare, come back. Those who do not wish to go, we are not compelling them to go. We are in touch with them one-on-one. Those who will not wish to go, we want to see what we can do to help them so that they can continue to stay on campus. It is only those who wish to join their parents for a few days we are giving the option to. Otherwise, we want them to stay. They have gone through counseling. We have our counseling team on standby. They have taken them through counseling one-on-one. And we have gotten in touch with parents to make sure that they are all safe. We have given them that assurance.
Okay.
So those who wish to pick their children home, yes.
Let's talk about the arrangements for feeding, shelter, now that, I mean, these 58 will no longer be in their previous dormitory. How are you going about that as well?
As an interim measure, we have moved them. We have another dormitory block because for now, we don't have first years in school. We don't have the full population of the school in. So we have some space where we have been able to put them in there for now. So in terms of shelter, for feeding and everything, everything is under control for now, except for their personal belongings that they have lost through the fire. And management is making arrangements to see how best we can help them to return to normal.
Do you intend to pay for these damaged items?
Well, looking at the cost implication, it is not something that the school can do alone. We have had our stakeholders who have joined us in the school to have a discussion. The regional director of education was there. We have the municipal director of education. The MCE was around, our board members, PTA. They were all around for us to have a discussion, and they are all making arrangements to help. In fact, those who would wish to go home, we are making arrangements to ensure that their cost of transportation is catered for so that they can go home, say, reintegrate, and then come back to school to continue their normal academic work.
Okay.
So we are in touch with stakeholders to help in this action.
But I'm sure you have...
and we are urging parents to also support.
Yeah, precisely. And I'm sure you have a message for those who are out there who may be willing to help in this trying times for the students.
Yes, it is actually a difficult time for the school, looking at the fact that we have had a whole dormitory block burnt down. We're not able to salvage anything. So in terms of their burdens, mattresses, blankets, everything was destroyed by the fire. Because they were not at dormitory at the time of the fire, they were at preps. Immediately, we could not save anything from that particular block. So actually, the students have lost so much. And so we are crying out to the public if they can help us in any way, if even is to restore the block so that we can normalize and continue with our work. Otherwise, when we have first years in school, it's going to be a major challenge for us.
Well.
So for now, that is the problem we have.
Yeah, indeed. And we'll add our voices to that. Thank you, Shada Dodo, for joining us here on The Pulse. Well, still to come, this year marks exactly 40 years since Ghana's last suffered severe hunger and famine. We'll bring you stories of individuals who experience the hardship after this break. A young man in his early 20s have been shot dead by a known gunman at Famine in the Ashanti region. Residents say the incident occurred around 2 a.m. on Monday, but reasons for the shooting remains unclear. Love FM's Nana Bochi Yadom has more in the following report.
Residents of Famine in Kumasi woke up to find the body in a pool of blood, alleged to have been shot dead. The yet-to-be-identified young man laid on the street of the community. Residents of the community gave an account of the incident.
It was just like a gunshot. Around what time? 2:33.
And you don't know him from this community?
No, looking at the face, you don't know him.
The assembly member James Nana Prempe says it is unclear what led to the shooting.
So I have to rush to the scene. The hall. But unfortunately, you see me buy na the phone So as assemblyman, me to me 57 buy my BBA, so make sure what happened. So I called the Sofla commander, and he has also called the regional crime officer. I've also called the regional crime officer myself. So they are on their way coming.
The police have visited the crime scene to begin investigations. Reporting for JoyNews, Nana Bochi Dankwayadom.
Well, the Ashanti Regional Minister Simon Osei Mensah says students of Krovi Ashanti Technical and Vocational Institute will be made to pay for damaged school properties. 6 vehicles, including new building projects, were damaged by rampaging students. who are allegedly protesting poor results of their predecessors. Regional Minister Simon Osei-Mensah, even before the announcement of a 5-member investigative committee, says government cannot take up the cost of damaged property. 40 students arrested during the protest are still in police custody. Love FM's Nana Yaojima has been following through that story. He joined the regional minister and members of the District Security Council on a tour to the school. Let's get more from Nana Yaojima, who's, I understand, joining us live from the campus now. Nana Yao, if you're with us, what can you report as of now?
Some 2 staff members. And then they've destroyed a pickup of the principal, which belongs to government. And an old bus that belongs to government too has been destroyed. There's a Mahindra that has also been destroyed. So far we can talk about 2 belonging to tutors of the institution, which are private properties, and then 4 belonging to government. And we make sure that depending on the condition of the vehicle, they will be valued and they will pay for them. We don't have money to go and buy pickups. You see, the Isuzu pickup was purchased in 2020 in the midst of the COVID. Do you understand it? When all of us were suffering, and then the government squeeze out funds to buy pickups for all institutions, and then you come to destroy it. They have to pay for them. Whatever they've destroyed, they have to pay for. Me, I believe in being fair. Being fair doesn't mean what people talk about, like put human face. All of us here, whose face is animal face? Which of the faces here is animal face? Why do we always talk? Yes, human face, human face. The person that don't, first of all, behave as a human being. So which human face are you talking about? This behavior, is the behavior of a human being? So why should people come and tell us human face, human? There's no human face here. Otherwise, we don't have to make the laws. Then, some people for sponsoring me for 12 years to be in parliament was useless. All the money that the government paid as my salaries and personal emoluments, then I have to refund them. We make the laws for the laws to be enforced. So when the time comes for enforcement, people should stop. Let's give human face. Every person's face is human face. But the laws are there because the face does not necessarily determine your character. And because we know that all of us will not behave in the same manner. That is why we have laws to guide us to behave in a certain acceptable behavior. And if you are not behaving like that, you must be treated with the law. And the law will deal with anybody who is found culpable. That is all that I will say.
For how long will the school be shut down?
That final decision for reopening will be determined jointly between the Regional Security Council and the Minister for Education. And it will also depend on the report of the committee that will be set up. And the time period we will use to repair the damage that they've caused to property in the school. So I cannot be here or stand here immediately and tell you that the school will be closed for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. I can't tell you. It depends on the results and recommendations of the committee to be set up.
Who are members of this committee?
For now, I cannot tell you the members of the committee because you don't have the names yet. Some of the members will come from the Ministry of Education. Some of the members will come from the Regional Coordinating Council. But definitely, I prefer the chairman of the committee to be somebody who belongs to the learned profession. That is an astute justice of the Superior Court or any lawyer of high repute who understand the legalities involved in such situations. And then we need somebody who is also a peacemaker. And then we need somebody who can delve into investigation. Definitely, and the coordinating director is going to be the secretary to that committee. So it will be a 5-member committee And then the secretary will be from the coordinating council, and it will be the coordinating director, who will have no voting right. Her responsibility will only be to record the proceedings at the meeting. But we will have 5 members so that when it comes to voting, they can vote and then take a decision on most of the issues that will be raised.
There are terms of reference.
We've not concluded on the terms of reference, but definitely one will be to establish the cause of the demonstration. Why did they demonstrate? What are the reasons? Then
the last point is about the security arrangement of the principal of the school. He was targeted during that attack by the students. They have gone home. What will be the security arrangement for the principal and by extension, the teachers?
Yes, well, I know definitely that my nephew, the district police commander, is here, and they've already put things in place to provide protection for them up to the time we feel the place is more secured. So that one, the police is taking care of that.
How soon will that happen? Because free SHS students are likely to be here as well. School selection has started.
No, TVET, everybody is free SHS. They are part of the free SH scheme. So they are also enjoying the...
Okay, let's hear more from Nana Yao Jima, who's on phone with us. Nana Yao, so that's the minister explaining what the next line of action will be. Beyond that, have we seen any reaction from the students themselves or probably their parents to what's happening?
From the information that I've been getting, the police have screened some of these students, and they are yet to determine the next process to take these students through. But some information that I've been getting is that the parents of some of the students that have been arrested have been to the school to inquire about the reason behind the arrest. And also, some of these parents have been to the police station. It is established that after police have taken their caution statement, screened them and everything, they will have a meeting with the parents to tell them the next or the way forward. So that is where we are now. Parents have inquired about their wards who have been arrested by the police.
Any updates on the release or otherwise of the students?
So we do not have any update on their release yet, but I know that they've so far their caution statements have been taken, and it's expected that if there is no intervention, these students will be processed for court. But according to the Ashanti Regional Minister, the law will be allowed to take its due course. So it's very likely that they will be arraigned before court for the court to determine whether they will remain in custody or they will be granted bail for the process to continue.
And let's talk about the safety of teachers and non-teaching staff on campus.
So per the directive that was issued by the TVET Council and also the Ashanti Regional Minister, police have been dispatched to the school campus to ensure that there is safety on campus and also for the protection of school property. So far, the information we have is that the head teacher and other teachers within the school are safe because there will be a police patrol station at the school to ensure their safety.
And generally, within the township itself, what are some of the reactions from residents who've never seen this in a very long time?
So many are surprised about the damage that the students have caused on the school premises. According to many of them, the school saw development just recently. Under the new government, the Nana Akufo-Addo government, a number of developmental projects or school infrastructure have been developed in the school. So the school was on its way to, on its rise, on the rise. So they are very shocked about the distraction that the students have caused, and they believe that it will delay the progress of the school.
We have the accounts of the Ashanti Regional Minister, but what are your sources equally telling you about what may have led to this clash on campus?
It's very difficult hearing. Can you please ask?
Yes, I was saying, indicating earlier that the Ashanti Regional Minister has his side of the story, but what's your source telling you about what may have led to this riot on campus?
Your question is not clear. Can you please repeat?
I'm asking about what your sources are telling you in terms of what led to this riot on campus, aside what we've heard from the regional minister.
Okay, so far, according to some information that I've picked on the ground, they're attributing the routing to 3 different reasons. One is that according to the students who undertook this particular exercise, their predecessors did not perform in their final year examination, and they are unhappy about that. And they believe that the teachers, including the principal, have a role to play in the failure, the massive failure of their predecessors. That is one of the reasons. And also, I've also picked another reason that, according to these students, the school has issued a directive that now from this term, both male and female students will not be allowed to have studies together. That's the evening studies, what they call prep together. So this infuriated some of these students for them to go ahead and perpetrate such an illegality on the campus. And finally, I'm learning that they claim that there are not enough sockets on the school campus for them to use for ironing. And that is one of the reasons they are going about such an exercise. But according to the District Director of Education, they've provided them enough sockets for ironing. But to him, the students want more because they would want to charge their phones on campus, which is illegal. The students are not allowed to bring mobile phones to the school. And that is one of the reasons they are calling for more sockets on campus to allow them go about their business on the campus. So these are the 3 reasons that we've so far been able to gather. But the committee that is being instituted by the Regional Security Council and also the Ministry of Education will be tasked to find out the main reasons or establish the reasons behind the action of these students.
Okay, grateful Nana Aljuma giving us updates from the Krovia Asante Technical School. 2 teenagers whose returning parents died mysteriously during the in the Ashanti region say they are enjoying their new life after being enrolled in school for the first time. That's Jake and Jesse Jackson, aged 13 and 11 respectively, never stepped foot in school as they have since infancy been home, schooled by their deceased parents. My colleague Ohimi Nteria visited Jake and Jesse at school and found this report.
Jake and Jesse Jackson returned from the Netherlands with their well-to-do parents 7 years ago. The parents allegedly severe ties with their extended family members. The couple also isolated themselves from their neighbors and their Chimamakru residence. Jake and Jesse were rescued in an unconscious state after police picked up the decomposing bodies of their parents from their apartment, whilst that of Mrs. Ernestina Jackson was discovered with some ice packs on it. That of Samuel Jackson was discovered on a toilet seater. The youngsters, after spending several weeks recuperating at the hospital, currently stay with their grandmother. Life since the death of their parents has been unbearable for them. 13-year-old Jake, who had kicked against starting formal education, has a change of mind after his first week in school. He says teachers, pupils, and the school environment have helped change his thoughts about learning in school.
Well, if I'm going to school, it looks like if I'm going to learn, the learning is easy. I make no mistake. If I make a mistake, they say you did not make a mistake. Only how you write is off the line and up the line. If it is break time, I'm going to play with the other class children. It means I have a new life. So this is my new life, and I'm enjoying it.
Jake's younger brother, Jesse, is living the moment. He's already enjoying his new friends in school. According to him, it has been easy learning in his new school. He vowed not to return to his parents if they were to be alive.
And school is more better than learning at home. The school is nice. I want to stay there. And in school, they got everything there. If I need a book, they'll give me a book. Pen or pencil, they'll give me pen or pencil or eraser or sharpener. Staying home and learn, I feel like boring. I want to go to the real school and learn. I feel and happy about this, not go back to my old home. I want to stay here and learn at school.
Sarah Frema-Boache is one of the teachers of the youngsters who are in class 5 at the Domiabra Methodist Primary School. She picks them up in the morning for school and also teaches them at home after school. She describes the reaction of the Jacksons for the first time in school.
They were super excited the first time they arrived in school, and they wanted to be in their classrooms already. So when I took them to their classrooms, they were very happy.
The Jacksons, for the first time, are being taught writing. Their teacher explains how they are faring academically and the decision to place them at class 5.
Because of their ages, the handwriting is not a problem because I can help them. But aside that, they are very intelligent. That's why we place them in class 5.
But the boys' education comes at a cost, at the expense of their unemployed grandmother. Madam Lucy Boache Benson, mother of the late Ernestina Jackson, spends at least 150 Ghana cedis daily on transportation and feeding of the youngsters. She has been depending on the benevolence of people for the boys' upkeep, including health care. Though it's early days yet, Madam Benson is afraid the education could be in limbo if things continue this way. The story of the Jacksons continues to be a puzzle. From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Ohimintiria reporting.
Well, it's been 40 years since Ghana last suffered severe hunger and famine. This period of hardship was quite different from any experienced in the history of the nation. My colleague Jacqueline Asamoah Yeboah in the following report recounts the phase through the lenses of those who experienced it up to its close.
Ghana experienced its worst and most severe drought 40 years ago. This devastating famine began in 1981 and peaked in 1983. Crop yield began to dwindle. Drought and bushfires destroyed many farms. Kwame Moses, a driver, was 14 years at the time and recalls his family lost all their food crops to bushfire.
People were really suffering. It was even difficult to get food to eat, and this was due to the bushfires. There was no rains, and the sun was really bright and hot. There could be bushfires anytime. Farms were getting burnt. Plantains could fall off easily, and we really suffered. I remember in 1983, my father had a farm. That was our main source of livelihood as a family. Unfortunately, one day, when we got there, everything was burnt to the ground. You could not even walk on the land barefooted on a regular day that there was no fire.
People began to have difficulty obtaining food. Even the wealthy had money but could not find food to purchase.
The food that was helpful to us was bobe, also known as Colocasia esculenta. This food was closer to the waters. Even the waters had dried up, and the aquatic animals could not survive in them. And also, kokonte was very common, because by the time you get home, the sun would have melted the cassava, and we would dry up the remains and take it to the mill to grind. But even with that, the leftovers were not much. And during those days, my mom would go and look for kontomire, and turkey berries. And even finding those was an issue.
Some traders jacked up their prices in order to profit from the circumstance. This compelled the government to enact price control measures. Sadly, the military guards posted at the marketplaces to ensure that traders complied with the established rates, flogged and tortured vendors for hoarding items.
I sold plantain during those times. The soldiers will come and sell your foodstuff at control prices. They put you on a table and lash you. By God's grace, I have never been lashed. I've been selling in Malamata even before 1983. People were really beaten. I have been truthful since 1944, so I was not beaten. But if your foodstuff are expensive, the soldiers will sell it at control prices and beat you.
In 1983, when Ghana was in dire straits, Nigerian President Shehu Shagari took advantage of the situation to exact revenge by expelling 2 million illegal immigrants from West Africa, of which more than half were Ghanaians.
If they don't leave, they should be arrested and tried and sent back to their homes.
With more than 2 million illegal immigrants ordered to get out of Nigeria, the resulting chaos is staggering. Hundreds of thousands have now massed at Nigeria's frontier with the tiny West African state of Benin.
This was in response to Ghana's Alien Compliance Order of 1969, where many illegal foreign nationals were expelled from Ghana. At that time, Ghana was unable to cater for the influx of its own people from Nigeria.
Almost 900,000 have already returned to Ghana alone. Most of the illegal migrant workers who've been expelled from Nigeria have been making their way along what used to be known as the Slave Coast, through Benin and Togo towards Ghana.
40 years on, Asari, not his real name, who was 33 years in 1983 and also a deportee, had quite an experience to share with me.
I was in Nigeria for 1 year, and then the security order also came. And when the security order came, we were coming. Our experience on the journey wasn't anything to write about. Unfortunately, we managed to enter Ghana. Before then, we were kept at a Benin, between Benin and Togo border for some days, because Ghana border has been closed for one reason or the other. So when the border was open and we were coming, not knowing they deployed soldiers all along the route, and on our way coming, maybe 2 or 3 soldiers will join your vehicle, and they will march you to transfer. They search you, whatever you have, they say they are going to change it with a bank rate. If you are having the Naira at the time, they are going to change it at a bank rate for you. And then you do your duty or whatever it is. And if you are lucky, you will get it. If you are not lucky, your money will go without getting it, and then you come back home empty-handed. Those were some of the experiences we were going through.
Asari ventured into Gari business in 1983, but unfortunately, soldiers kept on harassing him until he decided to give up and look for other alternatives.
It get to a point when this famine started that I decided to go to this Sanaboy Prestia area to go and do this Gari business, because it was somehow lubricant at that time. You go and buy it and then you come and sell. So some of our families were there. So we go there, they did the Gari for us, and we have been bringing it to Kanesh Market to sell. But unfortunately, one of their trips, the soldiers caught up with us and they took everything from us and they sold it at a control price, and we lost our capital. And that was the end of that business.
So how long did that business last?
About between 6 to 1 year time. Then our business collapsed and I went back to Nigeria.
Asari says he never wants Ghana to go back to those dark days. He stressed that freedom is more important to him than anything else.
Those era, I'm not sure we are heading towards those era. Why? Because as I'm sitting here, I'm free. I don't have anything at the back of my mind that maybe a soldier or somebody is coming to harass me or coming to take somebody good and go and sell it at control price and that kind of things. So I'm free. I can move to any place, I can move to any corner at any time without anybody harassing me. Unlike before, there are certain hours of the day, if you are moving in the soldiers or whoever they meet you are, they can do anything to you. And by the time maybe your family or your people will hear, maybe you are at a place, they are not thinking of you going there, but you are there. And who to go and complain to? Nobody. But as I sit down here right now, if something happened to me, I know where to go and complain. And maybe my case can be taken up and then I'll have my freedom.
Richard Sirifi was also deported from Nigeria. He was 25 years in 1983 and narrates that things were so bad in Ghana that he tried smuggling his way back to Nigeria.
83 no, we call Nigeria 79. We school na mpape kuma be fa me koi. Tie owa na mesamba Ghana. 81 na mesankoi.
My uncle took me to Nigeria in 1979 right after school, but I came back to Ghana and left again to Nigeria in 1981. Not long after I was deported to Ghana. Our journey back to Ghana was not a smooth one. A lot of people perished. Our parents thought we had also died on our way, but when they finally saw us, they were overwhelmed with joy. Initially, when we got here, they took us to the Independence Square, where we also suffered to move from. I didn't stay in Accra, but rather at Ajumako in the central region. In fact, the hunger caused people to eat raw cocoyam, and it was not easy for me. I decided to go back to Nigeria, but it didn't work out, and I returned to Accra. Issues with regards to money during that time was not a problem. Any small amount of money can buy something, though money was hard to come by. Small amount of money can buy something huge, unlike this era.
But the real question is, 40 years on, what has changed?
Yes, there has been a lot of improvement in terms of agriculture because some of our people have learned a lot of lessons during those era. And they have improved upon those things because there has been so many mechanisms after those farming season, and from the way I see it, there has been so much improvement because at that time, unless you are being forced to go into that farming or the soldiers can maybe group people to go and carry cocoa and some other things, but with that, with our current situation, there has been so much improvement. People go about their farming business freely without anybody forcing or pushing them to go and do.
Issues with regards to money during that time was not a problem. Any small amount of money can buy something, though money was hard to come by. Small amount of money can buy something huge, unlike this era.
No. We are going backward.
Oh, difference in India. Simple because
there is so much difference now, simply because currently the economy in the country is hard, but not like 1983. Money is hard to come by these days, and work is hard to find. If you work hard, you will definitely get the money to get what you want.
There are foodstuff available today and they are not expensive. The things in the shops are expensive. The oil for frying plantain chips has increased drastically. I believe this era is okay because the things are available.
Jacqueline and Suma Yabua's report for JoyNews.